what is hype-driven development? That's the first question probably we should ask ourselves. Like normally when we develop software, maybe we take into account the number of tests we have in our code, and we would call it test-driven development. Or we would split our business into domains, that would be DDD. Or maybe we would just look at the business cases that our software solves, which would be behavior-driven development. But how about development in which we make focus on technologies that we use? Is such development good? Yeah, exactly. So for me, that was obvious sentence that it isn't once I designed these slides. But later on, once I sat down to making those slides, I wasn't that sure anymore. But first, let's see the history of the web. So in my example, it started with those amazing technologies like Microsoft front page, Notepad, HTML, CSS, and this let me create this beautiful websites. As some of the people here would already say, not great, could be better or something like this. I liked it a lot. Very easy. You could do colors, maybe some iframe in the middle, and so on. But like when I was cloning different HTML pages, I was annoyed that this header logo has to repeat in each of the files. So over time, I discovered other technologies, like PHP, for example. This would let me render the response that was sent to the client before it is sent on the server side. And together with the databases, or maybe Apache, it let me build very advanced applications. And together with patterns like model view controller, maybe some framework that does it like the Symfony, you could do like very nice pages. Web applications, they will be already called. And later on, of course, I evolved a little bit. I changed technology. I switched to Ruby and Ruby on Rails, maybe to Elixir over time. Maybe I changed database. I switched from MySQL to Postgres. Maybe I switched from Apache to Nginx. But more or less, it was the same stuff on the back end. Like, it was just that was it. How about frontend? So in the beginning, we just had JavaScript, right, to make those snowflakes fly on the website. Maybe you had jQuery that would help us with manipulating the DOM. And that worked for a long time. But then somebody told me about Backbone. Maybe I read on the internet about the Backbone.js. So, and also I had clients, they wanted to have interactive web applications. Like they wanted to have some kind of dictionary application, for example. So like, okay, why not? Let's use it. Maybe I can make this stuff more quickly using those tools. And later on, there was AngularJS. And that was like, phew, that was something. Like suddenly everybody was doing single page applications, the web. And with this framework, it was very easy. That was a very good tool that let us do it in a quick manner. Sometime after, maybe there was also Node.js, and maybe we will be building our assets with Grunt, no longer with PHP or something. So that would simplify our development even more. But then other tools started to appear. There was like, for example, Ember. I didn't take it at that time because I was already using Angular. Why would I use Ember if I have Angular already? But OK, you guys use what you want. Then somebody tells me about React. And I'm again like, why do I need React if I have Angular? Somebody was telling me React is better, but like at least at that point of time, I didn't want to believe them. So I went on. But sometimes I was switching tools. Like I switched from Grunt to Gulp. Maybe I switched to new Angular. And so it went. Maybe new frameworks emerged, which could be similar, maybe a bit different to the ones we've had so far, and so on and so on. But these tools, they kept emerging, and they still keep emerging. Like, I'm not able to list all of them. And you're probably familiar with this, right? What is more interesting that this situation is not even about to stop. At least not yet. Like there is still a bunch of questions that we need to answer on front end, and we still are not sure about how we will do it and with what exact framework we are gonna do it. Like for example, the server-side render. Like, are we actually supposed to render everything on the server side or not really? If we are, then what framework are we gonna use? Are we gonna use Next.js or something else? What about client-side render? Are we supposed to render everything on the client? Or maybe sometimes just having this small jQuery script is actually fine. We don't know yet. How about keeping the logic? Should we keep it in the components? Or maybe we should extract it somewhere else, like to some Redux tree, or maybe something between, like having MobX or something. What about two-way binding? Is it OK? No, we need this one-way circle. What about dependency injection? If we just import and export stuff, which basically comes down to having global references in our code, is that fine? And maybe we need some kind of context, maybe component context like React has, or maybe something more like Angular, which is actual dependency injection being built in the framework. And what about build setup? What about the final framework? And so on. What about CSS? Right? But I have another question. I want to ask you guys, because you're programmers, right? We are programmers. And we're supposed to automate our stuff. So let's say somebody asks us that if we have created a website yesterday, are we going to do it more quickly tomorrow? Maybe. I hope so. Yeah, exactly. How about the tools? Are we going to use the same tools that we used yesterday? Or are we going to use this new shiny thing that somebody told me about yesterday or on the conference, right? Yeah, probably that's what we're going to do. And that's the truth. I mean, we've been following these hypes all the time. But is it bad? Maybe it's not bad. Because if we wouldn't, we would still be doing jQuery, right? So maybe it's OK. Or maybe it depends. Maybe sometimes a hype is good, and sometimes it's not good, right? Easy. But maybe not. Maybe it's not that easy. Maybe it depends on the time. Maybe the hype is good, but only after it is stable. But then after some time, it gets very not popular anymore, and it's not really good anymore to take it, right? But maybe this curve, which is dependent on the time, it actually also is dependent on the hype. So in here we can see this hype described by the blue line. It took longer time for it to emerge in the community, but over time it actually settled down. And probably it is good choice to take it. While the hype, the yellow line, it was super high at the beginning, but then eventually something happened. Either people realized that it's actually not good hype, or maybe this blue solution was better. Example, back in the days, I was using CoffeeScript, and it was amazing. It let me build very nice, almost JavaScript in a very quick way. And a lot of people liked it, but over time, it vanished, more or less. Couple of reasons, mostly because other languages were better, like ECMAScript evolved and it had stuff that CoffeeScript had, and so it wasn't necessary anymore to use CoffeeScript. And another case, TypeScript. Right now, everybody is using it. And what about Elm? It was also, I mean, it's still kind of hyped, but is it something that will eventually get super popular? Is it just going to be a niche, or is it going to vanish? We don't know. We need to see it after some time. So the question of the presentation is not about whether the hype-driven development is good or bad, because we already answered ourselves that it is good, at least sometimes. So the question should be more about, is the given hype bad or good? Or maybe, is it a good moment for us as a project, as a team, to join the given hype, to take the given tool? So this is the problem we should be answering, right? Should I join the given hype? Well, I would even improve it, because I don't like when people jump to conclusions before they have the problem defined, which my clients or product owners very often like to do. So let's redefine it. So let's think of a problem, actual problem that we have in our code base or in our project, and then ask ourselves, how can we solve it? How can we improve it? And only after that, we should jump to conclusions. We should see what is the market, we should see what are the possible solutions, stay with the current tool, take new one or some on, and then look at the pros and cons. Only then we can actually look at the problem. So let's see we are actually on the situation, right? When we want to see if the given hype is good or not. So what can we look on? There's a lot of examples. I'm sure you guys follow some of these ways of thinking. So for example, popularity, like we can look at the stars of GitHub, we can Google it, we can see if it's popular in Google, we can see if the people are actually downloading the tool on the NPM trends. We can go to local meetups or conferences and ask people directly, are you using it, and so on. But you can even go more further than that, like go deeper, like check out the comment history of the given repository. Check out the issues. Are there new issues being open? Are there any pull requests? Are they being merged? Or are they have no response? When were the new releases and so on? They can give you more insight if the given tool is actually popular and used or not that much. Documentation. So is the documentation there? But I mean the real good documentation. So not only the public API you're using, it should be fully documented, but is it correctly documented? Because very often the documentation is there, but it's just not that correct, which will make us spend more time on the accommodating given tool if the documentation is good. What about usage examples? Are they there? Do they follow the recent version? Because very often there is a repository which has usage examples, but they are based on some old version and they're not up to date anymore. How about tests? Does the given repository has tests? Can we be sure that, can we trust this repository that it will do the job that we want it to do? And edge cases, maybe some third parties, environments that we need to support, like legacy browsers, maybe Node.js, maybe accessibility, and so on. Like, these are the questions we need to ask ourselves when we decide on something new. How about the cost? So first we start with installation cost, right? Like setup cost. How much time are we going to spend by installing this tool on our stack? And also supporting all the edge cases. Like sometimes we install it, but then on the second day it appears, or it actually doesn't work on Safari or something. Well, we need to fix it. It's our job to fix it. And then the learning cost. How often do we actually think about how much time we will spend on learning this thing and educating all the team and maybe the future people that will join our project? Is this thing easy to learn? Is it just a simple API, or is it just some huge framework that needs a lot of like different articles that everybody needs to read? Maybe there is some knowledge that everybody needs to have, like a know-how, like because there are some certain scenarios that you cannot follow to be using this library in a good way. Example, Angular, React hooks, like they're very powerful tools, but you need to know how to use them. How about recruitment, which is actually very important point today's when people want to change stuff and they want to join projects that have the modern technologies, right? So are we going to attract the developers? Are we going to attract the good developers with the technologies we're using? For how long will it actually have effect on the recruitment in our company? And then the productivity, right? Because the tools were supposed to make our job easier. So will it cause bugs? Sometimes we install this fancy carousel or something, and it works for some time, but then it happens that this one configuration option just doesn't work at all. And then it's a bug, and we need to fix it. So what is the probability that this tool has some bugs that we don't know yet? What is the chance that this tool will cause our code to have some bugs? Does it make our code more simple or more complicated? If it's more complicated, there is bigger chance of bugs. So we need also to think about this. And performance, meaningful impact of performance. So is this tool actually going to impact our tool in such a way that it will do something? Because sometimes people like to argue about performance, but it's about like 1 millionth of millisecond for a function that's going to be run only once. So we also need to think about this. Like, is it bad or good in performance? Does it mean anything to us? And then the technology depth. So over time, let's say we introduce this tool, and then let's see we're like 6 or 12 months from now, did this tool make our code base more complicated? Does it impact a lot of files? Because it might be complicated, but if it impacts only one of the files in our repository, then maybe it's not a big deal, right? Also, maybe there are certain things that you need to follow, like rules. So maybe you need to add some ESLint rules or style guide rules, so nobody from the code base will break the way that our code should be built. And then last, that everybody is afraid of very often, the deprecation risk. Like, if I'm going to use this tool, is it going to still be there in a year from now? But first question is, maybe it will be abandoned, but maybe it will still be working, right? So what's the chance that this thing is going to break over time? Like, probably it's going to work in the browsers, but on the other hand, you never know. Sometimes Safari does some changes, maybe there's a new browser, and maybe it doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, then who's going to fix it? Is it going to be us, or are there going to be some open source contributors that they will maybe fix it? What's the chance of this? And also, will it be easy in the future to find people for this project? And how will be it difficult to replace this thing if we will not find any people for this tool? We can judge it by looking at the maintainers. We can look at about how is it popular. For example, we can judge the TypeScript even if it will get abandoned. Probably, I mean, if there's going to be better TypeScript, I think the current TypeScript still is going to be supported for a long time because there's so many projects being involved in it, for example, right? That might be one of the reasons. But also competition. So if there is a lot of like similar tools competing for the same use case, then there's a bigger chance that your thing that you decided to use will get deprecated over time. So we have all of those different rules of looking at the probability if the hype is good or not, but is that it? I also found a couple of rules that should make this whole decision making a bit easier. So let's look at those. So one of the favorite rules is just avoiding hypes that are about to die. That's it. So for example, why would we use some old way of writing JavaScript if we know that everybody already works on newest ECMAScript? And we know that people will use newer ECMAScript because this is the future, right? For example, why should we use Lodash-map if the map function is already built in the language? Like in 5 years, maybe people will not know what Lodash is anymore. So why should we add this thing to our code base? Same thing, if TypeScript is more popular than Flow and it does the same thing, then why should we go for the less popular option? So if the choice is that simple, then just choose it. Again, prefer native solutions if they do the job. So if you just need to do a HTTP request and you have window fetch which is available, then just use it. Like probably that's the future. All the browsers already have it. There are polyfills for the browsers that do not have it, and so all the developers either are already familiar with the fetch or they will be familiar in a few days, while the other libraries, they might not be that popular in a few days. And then avoid something that you don't need. So in some projects, in one project, I had this one friend, which sometimes is called as the loudest guy in the room, or on Twitter, that was like, GraphQL everywhere. Like, we will fix this with GraphQL, or we will fix it with snapshot testing and so on. Like, for each tool, there is a use case, and we need to have specific points. Why are we bringing the given tool to our table? If we don't have the reasons, then we shouldn't take it just because somebody says it's cool, at least in my opinion. Another way to counter the possibility of staying with the old hype that nobody wants to work with is to have some kind of adapter between our project and the tool you're using. So if this tool is wired by this one file, then if you want to change to a new tool, then we need only to change the adapter, right? And then we will not be with this tool forever. And another thing is to leave your personal taste aside. Like, I really mean it. Like, I take focus on this on almost my recent presentation. I even wrote an article about this on Medium called Code is Not Art, Code is Engineering. We're not supposed to do every code file look different like painters do with their paintings. We should solve problems in the best possible way. So if there is one way which is currently the best possible, we should take it. That's it, period. And if we don't know which way is the best, then we should make some kind of process to deduct it, to know this. So we should avoid policies like choose random, just do what you like, I don't mind, just pick random. How else can we choose? So for example, if we already know that this given way of doing stuff is better, then just choose it. That's it. And ban the other way. What if there are two equal ways of doing stuff, like equally good? So we can do spacer and we can do tabs, right? Well, just choose one. That's it. Go with spaces or go with tabs, I don't mind. Just choose one. Don't make it look like that half of files have spaces and half files have tabs. Because then the first thing is going to happen when somebody joins your project, he's like, why is it spaces here and tabs in here? Like, is there a reason for it? And then sometimes there's this A tool which is better in almost all of the cases, but maybe there is this one case in which B is better. So then again, it's simple. Just always use A, and in this rare case, use the other tool. That's it. But make a process for it. And sometimes it's not simple because you've been already using a tool, but nowadays there is something else which is better. So, well, there is two options. Either stay with the current tool and be satisfied with it. Don't bother with switching to other tool, learning, and so on, and mixing those two tools. Or leave that current tool that you have as it is, and then switch to the new tool for the new code. And that's it. So, simple rule. From tomorrow, you use the new tool and all the new files, and the current files, we leave it as it is unless there is a strong reason to replace it. And enforce it. So there are ways to do it. You can do it with ESLint, like you can forbid importing given dependency in given files, or you can forbid naming variables in a given way or something. You can, and if you cannot automate this with ESLint, then you can add some rule to README. Then it will be straightforward to explain something to a new person of our team by just pointing him to the README. And try to iterate, not reinvent. So try not to break things if you can. That's what engineers are for. We are to make stuff happen, not to break them. So if you can keep backwards compatibility, try doing this. Of course, sometimes there is a situation in which we can replace the whole code base with regular expression and just one commit, and we will not break anything. I promise. And you will not block anybody. No, there will be no merge conflicts and so on. Yes, that happens in small teams sometimes. In bigger projects and in bigger teams, never. So I wouldn't recommend ever doing that in bigger teams unless you really synchronize the time. In smaller teams, sometimes, but still be careful. If you can iterate, then why not? And again, be objective. So, yeah. Trying to explain this on the frontend conference. We should always have a specific reasons why we choose one tool over the other one, like really. And we should always use facts, not emotions. Because we are here probably to fix the problems that our clients have. If we fix their problems, then we can work on other problems, which are even more great. So why not to solve it in the best possible way? And be objective with this, because very often we have fights on Slack, and it's like, no, this is better, no, this guy tells this, and so on. Give specific reasons for this. Like, sometimes somebody is true by saying that this solution is better, but he has problems with saying this. Like, I even had that, and still have this sometimes, that I try to tell the others that's the solution. But the good senior developer, he should be able to say why this is the solution that is the best, because then everybody understands it. Then this decision is obvious. And everybody learns from it. And so remember this, and also help the others if you're better in soft skills. So try to understand the other side. Even if somebody is speaking with emotions, or maybe some just old experience, try to understand what is the root cause of it. Like, why this tool is better. Why is he saying the stuff he's saying? And also try to ask others for help if there's conflict. So ask other teammates, ask other teams in your company if you have such. Ask the community, go to conference, ask people, hey, we have this problem, we have these circumstances, we've been using this for time, we think about taking this, what do you think? Simple as that. And share it. So if you have a Slack channel or something, just share it on the Slack, saying, oh, I have this problem, probably I'm going to choose this because of this and this. But I just want to have your approval, guys. What do you think? Simple. And try to give why. Why do you choose it? And why am I so brutal on this stuff? So first, I want us not to be selfish, because it's about the long term, it's about the project, and it's about the team. This is what matters, right? So I'm not saying that we should avoid the hypes, but we should always know why we are taking the given hype. Because then we avoid the mistake of taking the bad hype. And be objective. Leave emotions aside, speak facts, help the others, be objective. Then the whole decision-making process in our company will be way easier. And that's what I think it should be about good decision-making process. If we want to be a good engineer, we should be like this guy on the bottom. Thanks, and that will be it from my side. I know there is no time for questions, but maybe we can do some after party later on. So follow me on Twitter if you guys feel like.